Steele, and today, Best Practice Mother's Day. We're going to be thinking theologically, historically and pragmatically about how to do Mother's Day really well. Our guests are Phillip, Jensen and Kate Stace. At our church last year, Mother's Day attendance was through the floor. It felt at that time we were recovering well from the COVID shutdowns and Easter had gone okay, and then we got to Mother's Day and it seemed everyone was away. Down we went kaboom. On the Facebook thread I was in, a lot of other ministers said the same things. Sunday mornings down 40%, Sunday evening down 25%. I mean, it had been really busy. I've got lots of excuses, all sorts of change management issues, but I made a mental note. Don't let Mother's Day creep up on you again next year. Because if you do the same thing next year, what we did last year, which was half-hearted and low-key, on Mother's Day, then you've got no one to blame but yourself if you get the same low response next year. So I'm open to something different, and I've invited some friends to come and help me think through this issue. And we're joined by the Anglican Dean of Sydney, Phillip Jensen, and now, or former Anglican Dean of Sydney, and now Director of Two Ways Ministries, Phillip Jensen, and Kate Stace, who was administrator at Vine Church until a week ago.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
And now is on, appropriately, maternity leave. Yep. Kate, congratulations, and can I start with you, and should I just accept that Mother's Day is going to be a low attendance Sunday?
I think there's a couple of different ways that you can go. One is going the low-key route, kind of maybe assuming that lots of people will be off with their families, lots of family lunches, family dinners, preventing people from coming to church, whether or not we want it to. Mm-hmm. Something that we have found worked really well at Vine Church is turning it into a mission Sunday. So we have some programs in place, we have some activities in place, and we found that that works really well. Lots of people invite their mums, or mums inviting their families. We find attendance is actually quite high on Mother's Day with what we do.
So we went down and you went up on Vine Church.
Yes, although there are probably other Sundays where you guys were up and we're down.
Right. Phillip, I remember you telling me when you were minister at St Andrew's Cathedral that Mother's Day was, I think you said, your key evangelistic day in the year, if I remembered rightly.
No,
okay.
But that's all right. But it certainly was one of them. Mm-hmm. That is, with Mother's Day, Kate's right. I think in many ways the church is ahead of where we were at and the things that they do. But we worked out that if we did nothing, the numbers went down. Mm-hmm. But if we made Mother's Day a special thing, we actually saw numbers go up rather than down, mm-hmm. and go up with warm contacts for Christianity. Mm-hmm. That is, you say to the mothers and grandmothers, why don't you ask your children to give you a present by coming to church and then taking you out to lunch? Mm-hmm. You know? Or you say to the young people, why don't you say, Mum, why don't we come to church and I'll take you to church, I'll take you out for lunch afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so we had the unbelieving mothers and the unbelieving children and grandchildren being brought along by the believers, mm-hmm. and the mothers and the grandmothers. But I think Vine Church actually knew what to do when they got there. We didn't do anything special. Right. But I think they, but we certainly saw numbers go up significantly on Mother's Day, with not just total outsiders like Christmas or Easter where the numbers went through the roof, but with warm contacts of family, friends. Yeah, it was good.
How does it play out morning versus evening and early morning versus late morning?
Yeah, definitely early morning is more successful, we found. So we have three congregations, 9, 15, 11 and 4:30. So we found 9:15 tends to be the biggest one, but I guess similar to what Phillip was saying, we'll encourage people to make church actually part of their Mother's Day celebration. So it's bring your mum along to church and then spoil her in Surry Hills, take her out for lunch, and kind of celebrate, which I think works well to help people see church isn't something that you ditch on family occasions, but actually can be part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think you do get visitors who are much more likely to come back rather than a cold contact, mm-hmm. Who of course is still welcome, but it's great when you have an extended family there. The family gets to see what church is like. You might have unbelieving kids and their partners coming along, and you get the chance to kind of build a family network, I think.
You were telling me, Kate, that you were opposed to Mother's Day. You were the voice on the staff team saying, let's not do this.
Yes.
Why is that?
Yeah, when I turned up at Vine Church, I think I was a little bit horrified, and I had to help organise it, so that that made me doubly horrified, doing something I didn't want to do. I think if churches can do something and it works really well, then I think that's a reason to keep going. So I think I was won over because the first year that we did it, we had heaps of visitors. Very positive experience. You know, we had a single mum come to church with her 3-year-old. She hadn't been at church in 10 years, and he was too little to organise her a present, you know, still in preschool. And she wrote to us afterwards and said, you know, this was the only Mother's Day celebration I got. And she ended up joining church and was with us for a number of years. And so I think I'm not necessarily an advocate for churches having to do something, but I think if you've got a purpose behind what you're doing and it's working, then that's what won me over in the end.
Let's
Very
talk
reluctantly.
But you did special things too,
Yes.
didn't you?
Yep.
Tell us those.
So we tend to have something that the mums can engage with, and we make it open so that grandmothers, stepmums, you know, spiritual mums we also really want to honour. We have something that they can engage with, so we'll pray during the service. We'll often have an interview which isn't necessarily a nuclear family mum, so it could be interviewing a child about you know, what their mum taught them growing up. It could be interviewing maybe a panel with a kids' church leader talking about how they're kind of spiritual mother to the kids in church. And then we have a little gift, which is this year's, spoiler alert, it's a box of tea. So, I mean, you guys can't get one, but maybe the listeners can.
I think it's in my wife.
Yeah.
The right
can
kind
come
of tea.
if you run out.
Go to Vine Church on Mother's Day.
So something really simple, which we set up on a table with a sign. I wouldn't advocate for handing something out at the door or...
Now, we just were having a conversation just a few minutes ago, and a young lady told us the story of turning up at church and somebody going to give her a flower and then said, oh, no, you're not a mum, and taking it back.
Yes.
And that being a devastating moment.
Yes. Yeah. I think... Mother's Day, I think, can be one of the most painful days of the year for people, and undoubtedly for people in our church that will be the case. And so what we aim to do is to honour motherhood, but do it in a way that doesn't isolate people. So we had a photo booth last year, but it was get a photo with your mum if she's here. If she's not here, get a nice photo of you to send to her, or get a photo with your friends. So the youth group got photos. We were kind of initiating group photos with people. But yeah, I never would have a moment, you know, stand up if you're a mum or something like that in the service, because I think there's just far too much happening for people for that to go well.
Do you mind telling us, because you did tell me on the phone, you've had a journey with infertility, and so an ambivalent personal attitude towards Mother's Day. Are you prepared to share with us?
Yeah, that's fine. So, I mean, lots of people in our churches will have a much more complicated journey than I had, but it took us a lot longer than we expected to be able to have a baby, who hopefully will arrive in a couple of weeks.
In time for Mother's Day.
Exactly, that would be nice. But I think there's plenty of people in churches like me who, you know, would love to be a mum, or maybe had gone through miscarriages, or, you know, people who are doing IVF. That wasn't my case, but, you know, I have friends who will be waiting for IVF results in the next couple of weeks. And so we do need to think about how they experience Mother's Day, not just how the nuclear family experiences Mother's Day. Because you'll have single mums, you'll have stepmums, you might have people who are estranged from their kids. But yeah, definitely I think for me during that period, Mother's Day was very difficult. But I think the evangelistic fruit that we saw made it worth it for me. Yeah, even if it was a bit of a tricky day.
And the patch you're working in, Surry Hills, it should be, if you saw fruit in Surry Hills, then out in suburbia, it should be richer fruit, one would hope.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, 50% of our church is single. Lots of people have moved to Sydney for work from interstate. So actually, a lot of our church hasn't even seen their mums in the last couple of years because they were either from Queensland or Melbourne or overseas. And so there's just a lot of emotional baggage, rightly so, that people have on Mother's Day. So I think it is important to create a space where that's welcome as well.
Phillip?
Well, I mean, the photo booth, that kind of thing, you see, I think is just terrific. And, I never did it. But if I had the chance now of revisiting, that's the kind of thing. You turn the day into a big day, into a big celebration. I think one of the ways of helping with the problem side, I mean, you've got to deal with the problem side, the difficulties, the pains.
And the pain's there because it's actually a good thing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so acutely painful, because it's creation. But one of the ways of dealing with it is to concentrate on everybody has a mother or has had a mother, so that yes, you don't give the flower to the mother, and then especially you don't say, oh, you're not a mother, you can't have one. I mean, that's just unbelievably awful.
I heard another terrible story of a stepmum who turned up, and she'd just become a stepmum, and they said to her, "Oh, you really can have one this year."
No.
And it was just so hurtful.
You give the flowers to everybody. The old tradition was that you gave the red flowers if your mother's alive and a white flower if your mother's dead. So the men were given flowers. Everyone's given, because we're not concentrating on the mothers who are here, we're concentrating on thanking God for your mother. That includes everybody.
Yeah.
Whether you're a single mum or not a single mum, you had a mum.
Yeah.
And you're thanking God for that mother. Now, inevitably, you'll also be thinking about the mothers who are there right now, and the ones who would like to be and can't be for various reasons. And so, yes, you've got to be sensitive to the problem side, but if you keep the focus on, you had a mother.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, really, sometimes, but he had one too.
She's watching.
Oh, no. And she's a lovely lady, very patient and kind. You see, and so we celebrate everybody's mother.
Phillip, the theology behind Mother's Day. Do you want to give us a riff on that? Yeah.
Oh, sure. Creation is fundamental to Christian understanding, and when you come into Christ, you come back in connection with the Creator, and you come back into connection with creation. So people who have moved away from God and from Christ, they deny the good things of creation. Like 1 Timothy 4 talks about it in terms of denying marriage or denying foods that God has created for us to enjoy. But once we've come back to the Creator, we come back to accepting creation. Because creation is a reality, it's where we can actually connect with non-Christians, Christians and non-Christians, because whether you're a Christian or whether you're a non-Christian, you're here because you have a mother. You're here because that's how we all got here. And so it's not a bridge you have to build, it's a bridge you already have, unless it's been distorted by weird teaching. It's already there. And so it's something we can share theologically and personally with our community, but it also, because of our sinfulness, we can all thank God for mothers, and our mothers in particular, but we also know that there are pains of reconciliation needed because of bad things we've said, the terrible teenage years when we treated our mother badly and the like, where we actually need to say sorry, we need to turn back, and where forgiveness can be a really important issue, because that which is so good is that which is so painful. And so asking God for help, asking God for forgiveness. It's not a hard area in which to bring the gospel to bear. And then we all have the problem of how to be a good mother, because today, as in every day, being a mother is really tough work. I shouldn't do it. It's a dream. It's a dream every day.
I'll call you in a few weeks.
Yeah, no one works much harder in this world than young mothers. And so to be praying for them and upholding them in their work and ministry is so it is a very easy area in which to naturally relate to the non-Christian world in a way that they can understand our Christian world. Because at this point our Christian world is manifestly right. And they can hear it and see it as right. Yeah.
Now, we talked a minute ago about, you talked about the interviews that had been done at Surry Hills, and I presume on your watch, Phillip, the interviews in the Cathedral. What about the preaching on Mother's Day? What's your insights there?
No, it's... I had 12 years in the Cathedral. I ran Mother's Day every one of those 12 years, and I never ran out of text to preach on.
So, but you didn't stay in the sermon series, or you did stay?
No, it was a special day.
Right.
Special day.
Okay, give us a couple. Yeah.
I mean, the obvious ones start off in the Ten Commandments. You know, the Ten Commandments are very male-oriented. Do not covet your neighbour's wife. It doesn't say do not covet your neighbour's husband. Right? Don't. It doesn't say it. It's not. But suddenly, honour your father and your mother. The inclusion of women at this point is such an important part of the process. And so what does it mean to honour your parents? What does it mean to honour your mother? I mean, there is an easy text to be preaching on without God. Genesis 3:15 takes you back to the first example of the gospel, with the woman's seed is going to be crushing the serpent's head. And you go across to Galatians chapter 4, and one of the characteristics of Jesus, he was born under a woman, under the law, in order to redeem those who are under the law. There's any numbers. Mary is a great one that we can pick on. People say, you know, how blessed she must have been, and she must have been. Fancy. I mean, she was holding in her hands
The Saviour of the world.
the Saviour of the world. Yeah. And yet the Bible goes on to say, Jesus went on to say, yes, but blessed more are those who hear the word of God and do it. Right? I mean, there's any number of references. It's the Isaiah, isn't 49, about can a woman forget the baby she has born? Yet I will not forget you. I mean, there's nothing stronger, humanly speaking, than a mother's love for its baby. And yet, even that can, under a circumstance, fail. But God's love will never fail us. I mean, there's any number of parts of the Bible to be preaching on. Go to philipjensen.com, look at my Mother's Day sermons and
pinch one of them.
Pinch whatever you like. I'm very happy for you to do it. But I never found difficulty coming up with another one for the next year. No, I don't think I ever recycled. I don't think I ever did a repeat.
Because you were coming in, I went and looked, what are we doing on Mother's Day this year? And you can see, I said at the beginning, it's crept up on me. And I've planned to preach on Romans in term 2, and I just looked to see what we've got down on the 8th of May, and it's... we start Romans in the first half of Romans 1 on the 1st of May, and the second half of Romans 1 on Mother's Day. So I've got to decide whether or not to go.
Second half of Romans 1 on Mother's Day.
It's probably not going to work.
Towards the end of Romans 1, doesn't it talk about hating their parents? Disobedience to parents, that's one.
Yeah, but it'll just get lost in so many other issues.
Just highlight that phrase. Yes.
History of Mother's Day.
It is a Christian celebration. And so getting people to come to church on Mother's Day fits the history of Mother's Day. There's a fantastic mother, unbelievable mother in the late 19th century in America called Mrs. Jarvis. And she had a daughter. They're both called Anna. One's Anna Marie, the other's Anna Marie or something else, but they're both Anna Jarvis. And Anna Jarvis Senior did incredible things for the community, as well as having 11 or 12 children. And in her Sunday school class, because she was a very keen Christian who was involved in planting churches, in her Sunday school class, she said, you know, one day we should have a celebration for Mother's Day. And when she died in 1906 or something like that, her daughter remembered that and said, we're going to do this. And so she set up in her church Mother's Day in 1907 and started spreading the news through the ministers' fraternals and etc. as to what they were doing, and it took off all across America. In England, a clergyman's daughter in England heard about what Anna Jarvis was doing and said, well, we don't need to do that because we've got Mothering Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But Mothering Sunday, which is I think the second Sunday in Lent or something like that, whereas Mother's Day in America was the May, second Sunday in May. Mothering Sunday had kind of fallen into disuse. So this woman set up to recapture and to resell mothers, wrote books, wrote plays, petitioned people, etc., to recreate Mother's Day or Mothering Sunday. When I grew up here in Australia, in Sydney, we were always a little bit conflicted about this because you went to church and there was Mothering Sunday, and then a month or so later you'd have Mother's Day.
Right.
And it never get, but nearly everywhere I know now in Australia, certainly most Bible-believing churches, they've ditched Mothering Sunday.
Although I noticed it's still the one in the UK, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the English are still doing it. Good on you, Pommies, you stick with your traditions. But the world has actually gone with the American one. But it was all designed about thanking God for our mothers, and therefore it was all designed about being in church for Mother's Day. And it was Miss Jarvis who brought up the idea of, you know, the red flower and the white flower, and everybody used to celebrate and thank God for their mothers. And you think about it, it's so right, isn't it? Mothers give us life. That is a terrific thing to give, is life itself. And they risk their life in giving us life. And they risk their health in giving us life. And they give to us our physical needs as little babies, but also our psychological needs. The bonding of mother and little child in those early months is just fundamental to who we are as people. And it's why we have such a deep emotional connection to mother. Mother's Day works better than Father's Day. Father's Day was also created by Christians, but we'll talk about that when it comes to Father's Day. But Mother's Day was, you know, it works because we all do have a deep emotional connection, or a very sad broken connection with Mum. And that's the way God's created us. It's wonderful.
Let's just think 2022 Mother's Day. What did you think when Phillip talked about the red flower and the white flower for everyone? Because in this modern era, I kind of went, oh, I don't know if I feel totally comfortable about that.
Yeah, I guess it...
You're going for a box of tea.
We've already done the shopping. It's done. I think there's something good there about it. It's very universal, right? It's not you get one if you're a biological mother only. It's much broader, which I really like. And I think you know, I became a Christian out of a non-Christian family. My sister did as well. And I think for us, actually having an extended Christian family has been one of the biggest blessings of becoming a Christian, because you suddenly have a church full of extra aunts and uncles and grandparents and, you know, older Christian figures in your life. And so I think there's something really good about that, where, you know, you really get to appreciate that on Mother's Day. I don't know that many people with mums who've passed away who would be happy to wear
Have a different
flower on
colour
Mother's.
flower.
Yeah. But
What would you do, Phillip, today?
Well, it was the tradition.
Yeah.
And if you're in a context of traditionalism, then that's what's expected. But if you're not in a context of tradition,
you think
it's not a tradition.
The box of tea is the way to go.
Yeah.
It's not, well,
Or?
I don't know, I haven't got an alternative yet, I haven't thought it out.
Chocolates.
But something for people to remember their parents. I wouldn't go for the red and the white flower anymore. I'd just say, here's a flower for you to remember your mother.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry about it. But to be able to say to the men in the congregation, thank God for your mother.
Yeah.
Not just look after your wife, you know, is because, gee, my mother was really important to me. I know that, and it's nice to be able to pause and say, well, God, you gave me that mother, and that was a great gift. That was one of the greatest gifts you've ever given me. And to remember to thank God for our mothers. I don't need a flower to do that. But that it's the focus on the universal, I think, is important. Right? Because
But
the
are you
problem
doing
is
the
that
box just for women, or...?
So we'll, yeah, I mean...
to share with their men.
Yeah. The way that we do it is for mums, but we would set it up so that people can take it if they feel comfortable. And so some people will take it for their mum who's not with them, or, you know, you'll get some maybe husbands who have wives who aren't Christians who will take one home for their wife. It's interesting, we realised last year actually a lot of the people serving on Mother's Day were mums, which I think is probably quite a common thing in churches where often the mums are kind of the powerhouse of the church that is really motoring along and keeping things going.
And I mean, I'm talking to a few people in preparation for today. Some said for some Mother's Day is an experience of breakfast in bed, but for some it's just work and cooking the dinner and cooking the lunch for extended family or whatever. And
Yeah. Well, and they might get lunch cooked for them and then spend 3 hours having to clean up the mess that got made.
Having eaten something that really
Didn't
wasn't
taste
as
very
good.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing with us. My guests on The Pastor's Heart, Kate Stace, she's the administrator on maternity leave at Vine Church in Surry Hills, and Phillip Jensen, who heads up Two Ways Ministry in Sydney. You've been with us on The Pastor's Heart, and we will look forward to your company next Tuesday afternoon.